So, no matter what you do, no matter what choice you make, you are choosing something over something else. You could be choosing to do nothing. You are choosing the comfort of where you're at instead of the discomfort of stepping into something else. Choosing to do nothing is choosing to avoid. It's choosing to stay. And sometimes choosing to avoid something isn't necessarily bad. There's a saying, you know, sometimes the biggest winners are quitters. Knowing when to quit something absolutely is an important skill. Sticking to something for too long is something that I have definitely been guilty of in my life. I get so committed, especially to people, that I have been very taken advantage of before in the past and mistreated, but I wouldn't let go even after things got really bad because I thought I was being faithful. I thought I was being committed. And sometimes we do that. We don't realize maybe we should do nothing. Maybe we should step away. Maybe we should quit. But a lot of times what I see is people thinking that by choosing to do nothing, they're actually doing nothing. And it's really important to understand that anytime you do something, anytime you choose something, you are giving up something to choose that. There is a something that you want, and there is a something that you're gonna lose. If you choose to go to work instead of to your kid's ball game, you're gaining the money, but you're losing your kids' respect. If you choose to go to the ball game instead of to work, you might not be able to keep the electric on that month, but your kid's gonna think you're their hero. It's hard. Sometimes the options aren't great. Really, really not great. But you are always choosing to give up something to gain something else. Sometimes you just choose to say, oh my gosh, I had such a long day, I'm binge watch some show on TV or on, you know, a streaming service. And you just vegetate. You are choosing rest, you are choosing decompressing, you are choosing recuperating over other things that you could have been getting done, like house cleaning. And so then that means you're losing being as hygienic. You're losing, you know, having a less chaotic home. It's gonna be clutter-filled, but you chose the thing that you wanted more, or that was the thing that felt like you wanted it more. Sometimes we make choices based on our feelings that we have right that second, but our feelings change. Our feelings are very often in flux, and so then we later regret the decision. Sometimes you do a thing because you're choosing the outcome, and the outcome will be more rewarding than the challenge that you have to go through to get to it. And those are the times when you can get some real sense of fulfillment. You get a sense of pride. Ugh, going to the gym. Ugh, I never want to go to the gym. But I know after I go to the gym, I never leave the gym thinking, man, I regret this decision. I should never have exercised. So I go to the gym. I don't feel like it right that second. But an hour later, I feel pretty good. It can be, oil change, it's so tedious, it's such a waste of time. But when your car continues functioning years later, the oil change wasn't a waste of time. It's annoying, it's not your favorite thing to do, but it's still a good thing to do. Because long term, the result is worth the tedium. So sometimes when we make choices, we really need to step back and say, am I going to feel this way forever, or do I just feel this way right now? Is this something that I want to avoid forever, or do I only want to avoid it right this second? That person made me angry. We got in an argument, but also I'm super in love with them. And the love is long term. The argument is temporary. It's so important to understand that longevity matters. There's so many times in my life that I've held on way too long, but I can at least be really proud of the fact that there's so many times when other people would have given up and I didn't. There are so many situations where people have flat out told me, I don't know how you did that. I can't even fathom how you did that. What kind of resilience or fortitude, like how? I know for a fact from the voices of other people that they wouldn't have been able to do it, that they would have given up. And I didn't. I wanted something long-term. I was willing to try. I was willing to sacrifice. I was willing to compromise in order to have something that was going to last. When I was growing up, I grew up in a not good situation, and people tried to keep me from being able to get out of that. There were so many people who knew that we were being abused, but they didn't know maybe the full details. Not a single person ever called the police, called CPS. Well, okay, one time CPS came. I'm pretty sure it was because of a school that we were going to, and of course, immediately the next year we switched schools. I was considered to be very smart. As I was growing up, once it was realized that I could make straight A's, I was not allowed to do less than that. I had to take these intelligence tests once a year that were from Stanford and prove my genius over and over and over again every year. And it didn't matter how incredibly well I did on them. Anything that was, say, in the B range for college material would be harped on, and I would be punished for, and I would be criticized about, and I would be forced to do extra work toward that. It was non-stop pressure when I was growing up. And so when I was 17, I had done enough that I could graduate. I was half a credit away, which the school system wanted me to just go ahead and graduate. To just do the little half credit with a little, 3-month thing in the summer and start college. And the adult in charge in my life petitioned the school system for me to not be able to graduate without me knowing about it. I had no idea about any of it. They didn't want me to be socially behind other people at the college because of my age. And so I had no idea. I also had no idea that when I did eventually graduate, multiple colleges sent letters offering me, because of my intelligence, scholarships to the colleges. The adult in charge of me at the time hid all of those letters, and they only wanted me to go to one specific place, and they forced me to tour there even though I did not want to go there. I had no interest. And so 2 days after I graduated high school, I just ended up leaving a super abusive situation where I was in fear every single day. And almost every day there was violence. I did not know that I had had any options. I found out about all of that when I was like 30. And the person was already out of my life who had been in charge, who had already, separated themselves from me, and I had separated myself from them. And I couldn't even yell at them about it or be upset with them about it because it had happened so many years ago. It's like when I was in middle school, I was one of the top 100 kids for math in the entire country. And as long as I stayed in the school system, I would be guaranteed a scholarship for college. So immediately the next year, the adult in charge took me out of school and put me into homeschooling so that I would lose that. I did not know I had options. I grew up with that level of hurdles, of someone actively trying to keep me from ever being able to get out. And I still, 2 days after I graduated high school, took my meager little possessions and left. And slept on a couch. And figured out how to get a couple of part-time jobs and get an associate's degree. And I have met people who are so offended on my behalf. They're so deeply offended on my behalf. I've even had people say, oh my gosh, them doing that is like in some ways worse than beating you your entire life. Like, you know, the domestic violence in some ways is less bad. I don't know if I agree with that, having experienced it, but I do get why they are offended on my behalf. I do get why it's so bad. I've had people tell me, I don't know how you did that. Honestly, sometimes I don't know how I did that. Sometimes I am extremely impressed by my previous self because I was so convinced that it was what I needed to do. And I don't know how I convinced myself of that, except that I knew I couldn't stay there. But in making that choice, I had to give up being there for my siblings. And up to that point, I had been doing everything for my siblings that I could to keep them okay, to at least a certain degree, as much as I had the capacity for, but I was a kid. So unfortunately, I did not do the best job. But I tried to help raise my siblings, I tried to help teach my siblings, I tried to help feed my siblings, I tried to help take care of my siblings. And when I left, it was one of the most agonizing things I've ever done in my life. I had one of my siblings who was a toddler, and it suddenly, somehow, I said, okay, bye-bye, and it suddenly occurred to them that I was going, and somehow they knew I was going. Somehow, this little toddler understood that this wasn't just a little bye-bye. And they started sobbing and screaming and running for me, and the other people had to grab them and hold them back because they kept trying to reach for me, and I had to walk out because if I stayed there I would have died. I gave up something to gain something else. And I did go back and visit, and I did send letters, and I did try so hard to stay part of that person's life. And now that we're all adults, you know, they only have positive sentiment toward me, but they also do have abandonment issues. And I blame myself for that. I take responsibility for that. But I also know at that point in my life, when I was a teenager, was attempting to harm myself or even end my life, like, almost all the time. I would have died if I stayed. But I absolutely sacrificed something to gain something else. You don't have to apply it to something that extreme. It can be small things, but you gotta understand the concept to understand why it's so important to invest in yourself. It is so incredibly important to invest in you. You can carry yourself through things that might seem unimaginable. They might seem so astronomically hard that it seems like it should be impossible. But if you invest into yourself, if you believe, yes, I have to do this because I want that life, I want that long-term something, then the temporary something that you're going through right now is survivable. And you can choose the long-term something over the temporary something. I have been forgiven by every single one of my siblings, and I don't always feel like I deserve it. But they all forgave me. My youngest sibling, the one who was crying and reaching for me, has flat out told me that I was their example, and that the whole time that they were growing up, they knew they could get out because I got out. I chose something that didn't just affect the rest of my life, but also affected the rest of their lives. And I thought I was just doing it for me, and that I was abandoning them. But by choosing the thing that was long term, it taught them to choose the thing that's long term. They chose to invest in themselves. And we all have our issues. Every last one of us has issues because of the way we grew up. Let me be clear. All of us still need therapy, okay? Let me be clear. We are not perfect at all. But I had a hand in raising my siblings, and I can proudly say that every last one of them at least seems to be able to be functional adults. None of them ended up into substance abuse, which is super common for people who grow up the way we did. All of them got out. None of them still live in that situation. All of them have found someone and gotten into relationships, and all of them have developed a life of their choosing. So I am super happy about that. I'm super even proud of my tiny part in that. But in reality, I'm just so proud that they invested in themselves. I try so hard to be functional, and there are days that it's easier than other days, for sure. But I know on the days that it doesn't feel that great, that's temporary. That I'm not gonna feel that way always. I did used to feel that way always. It took a long time to get out of it. But I knew I couldn't stay like that. I knew it was not sustainable. And I wanted something long term. When you make a choice, you are choosing something and you are giving up something else. I chose the hardship and the challenge, and I gave up the self-harm and the depression. But it took years for that to actually show results. But it's still what I chose. And I am very proud of that. And again, sometimes I don't know how I did that. Sometimes I think maybe, I don't know, there's some sort of truth to the whole hubris of youth thing or something, you know, this naivety that, yeah, this is gonna happen because I'm full of gusto and I'm gonna do it, you know, man, I wish I had some of that now as much as I had when I was that old, of this determination. But even now in my 30s, I still get determined about things, and I still choose things because I started the habit at some point long ago. Investing in yourself is the surefire way to make something worthwhile happen. Invest in your own skills, invest in your own dreams, invest in knowing what you want, invest in caring about yourself, loving yourself, being aware that you matter. Invest in your learning and your knowledge, and invest in your future. Choose what's long-term gonna help you, what's long-term gonna benefit you, what's long-term gonna be the thing that's fulfilling, even if you can't see all the ways that it will end up being fulfilling. People are always in the pursuit of happiness, but real happiness is fleeting. It's always temporary, so you always have to be in pursuit of it. That's sort of the point of happiness, is it fades, and you have to get it again and again and again. But a sense of fulfillment, it lasts. Avoiding pain is not happiness. Sometimes we accept pain. Sometimes we accept a challenge. Sometimes we accept something that's hard, because the long-term result will be a fulfillment that could last the rest of our life. Maybe you are in a relationship and it's not as graphic or as bad as what I grew up with, but you're still in a relationship that's negative. Be honest. Communicate, hey, you know what? I'm not comfortable with these things. Can you please change these things? If you cannot change these things, I need to go be in a different relationship. because I will not be able to have fulfillment here. Maybe you're doing some sort of work, and right now it is crap. It sucks. Your job is terrible. Start doing the math. It's uncomfortable to think about the money sometimes, but start doing the math. How much do you have to save up to get some sort of cushion built up so that you can quit? How much do you have to save up to get rid of whatever you owe in debt so that you can move on? So that you can actually do something that's less horrible. Maybe you've stayed at a job and it's not horrible, but you only get like a 2% raise every year. It doesn't even cover the cost of inflation. Have the courage to step away. Get a job in the same field at a different place. The number one way to increase how much you earn at your job is to go to a different one. Unfortunately, places do not give good raises, but you can give a really good raise to yourself by getting hired at another place and being willing to negotiate for yourself for what is the standard for your job. Go to Glassdoor, go to wherever you need to, look up how much you're actually supposed to be getting. Fight for it. Choose it. Maybe you are trying really hard to eat more vegetables, but man, your kids hate them. And you don't want to have to make 2 dinners every night, so you just choose one dinner that your kids will eat. But your health is suffering because of it. You're choosing one dinner, and you're sacrificing yourself. You cannot gain something without giving something in return. Everything you do in life is transactional. Choose the thing that is long-term gonna be fulfilling, because you matter.